Welcome to your week in review here on WINN FM 98.9 for the period March 24th through 29th. Making the news last week, St. Kitts and Nevis strengthens international partnerships and champions regional climate action.
NRP's leader calls out the Nevis Island administration for lack of accountability and lack of transparency. St. Kitts and Nevis hopes to achieve 100% green power by 2035. Mural by Vaughn Anslin helps to transform the JNF pediatric playroom into a fantasy playland. Prime Minister Drew says getting rid of plastics is not about following a trend, but protecting people's health.
Now the details. St. Kitts and Nevis has emerged as a prominent voice in regional and international sustainability and climate resilience discussions. The recent hosting of the Green Climate Fund GCF Regional Dialogue from March 17th to 20th at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort under the theme Towards a Resilient Caribbean Advancing Regional Solutions for Climate Action, Sustainable Growth and Inclusive Development underscores this growing leadership. Minister of Environment and Climate Action, the Honourable Dr. Joyle Clark, emphasized the significance of this event.
We have become a buzz point, not just for tourism, but for conversations on sustainability, climate resilience, and that's because of our demonstration of our ambition and our intentions to transition.
The GCF Regional Dialogue brought together regional leaders, international partners, and key stakeholders to address critical climate challenges and explore collaborative solutions. A significant highlight of the event was the participation of Prime Minister Motley of Barbados, a global champion for small island developing states. Dr. Clark noted that Prime Minister Motley delivered
a very inspired call for action that as a region we needed to work towards a debt for climate swap, logistics and transportation, interregional logistics and transportation, and an energy framework for cooperation in the Caribbean.
This call for regional cooperation was echoed throughout the conference, emphasizing the need for collective action to address shared climate vulnerabilities. The dialogue also facilitated crucial discussions on energy transition and developing a regional framework for energy cooperation. Minister Maynard hosted a meeting that brought together all regional partners, including OECS, CARICOM, CDF, CDB, and ECCB, to discuss a green print for energy transition. Dr. Clark highlighted the significance of this meeting.
The Green Climate Fund regional director said that was the first time she saw every single regional partner, OECS, CARICOM, CDF, CDB, ECCB, every 5 Cs, everybody was in that room, a room of 20, with our minister talking about a regional framework for energy.
This framework ensures that progress on renewable energy and geothermal initiatives continues regardless of administrative shifts, fostering long-term sustainability. While St. Kitts and Nevis has historically accessed the least funding from GCF among Caribbean nations, the Federation is actively working to increase its access to climate finance. Dr. Clark emphasized the importance of proactive engagement and lobbying.
You cannot stay in St. Kitts and Nevis and expect the world to say, send some money to St. Kitts and Nevis.
St. Kitts and Nevis is positioning itself to secure greater financial support for its climate resilience initiatives by demonstrating a commitment to sustainability, implementing sound policies, and fostering collaboration.
As we shift our behaviors, conferences and engaging international partners in this way will become part and parcel. And I look forward to the day when we can hold a big UN climate conference. We may not have the space, but that's a hope, and it's about that accelerated ambition.
Sports Minister Samuel Duggins is facing renewed criticism over the government's decision not to bid for matches in the 2024 ICC Men's T20 World Cup held across the Caribbean and the United States as the economic impact data for the event is released. St. Kitts and Nevis, along with several other territories, did not host any games during the tournament, leading to widespread frustration among local fans. Dr. Kishar Shallow, president of Cricket West Indies, highlighted the significant economic benefits enjoyed by the host territories. In a statement, he shared that these regions saw over $1 billion in economic returns for the event, calling it a transformative moment for our region. Shallow emphasized that the tournament not only reinforced the Caribbean status as the heartbeat of world cricket, but also positioned as a hub for economic growth, tourism, and global investment.
The independent economic impact assessment conducted by the International Cricket Council (ICC) and Nelson Sports paints A compelling picture. This World Cup injected an astonishing $1.66 billion into the economies of the host nations, directly benefiting businesses, workers, and communities across the Caribbean. In an era where economic resilience is more critical than ever, this event serves as a beacon of possibility, showcasing the power of sport, the power of cricket to drive tangible and lasting economic progress.
According to Shallow, the territories that hosted the games, such as Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Antigua and Barbuda, saw the most significant economic impact.
What we can achieve when we work together, my Caribbean people. The impact of this World Cup was felt in every corner of our region, with millions of dollars flowing into key economic sectors, generating employment and fueling small businesses. Each host territory within our region did exceedingly well. While it is obvious that some countries outperformed the other, the numbers are nothing short of remarkable, and every single country, all of these 6 countries in the Caribbean, must be proud. Barbados led the way, generating $426.4 million in economic impact. Second to Barbados was St. Vincent and the Grenadines, generating a staggering $224.8 million. And of course, St. Lucia performed exceedingly well with a magnificent $132.5 million in economic impact. Antigua and Barbuda's commendable record stood at $114 million, and Guyana and Trinidad $76.7 million and $68.9 million respectively.
As these achievements are celebrated across host nations, local politicians are questioning the decision not to include St. Kitts and Nevis. Azad Gums, deputy leader of the People's Action Movement, has criticized Sports Minister Samuel Duggins for the country's absence from the tournament.
The fact that we're able to see from our neighbors the returns for hosting the World Cup cricket, and our Minister of Sports not wanting to even bid for the hosting of the World Cup here in St. Kitts and Nevis shows the short-sightedness of the Minister of Sports, shows his lack of innovation, creativity, and his lack to do anything to place St. Kitts and Nevis in the eyes of the international arena.
Dr. Shallow further emphasized the tangible benefits for the region.
These figures are not just statistics. They represent real income for families, real opportunities for entrepreneurs, and real investments in our tourism infrastructure. Hotels, restaurants, transportation services, retail outlets, and cultural industries all reap substantial benefits from the influx of teams, cricket fans, international media, and corporate partners.
Meanwhile, Gums raised concern that the government has failed to recognize the potential impact of sports tourism on the local economy.
The trickle-down effect, hosting the games would have been a boost to many persons in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. The advertisement when it comes to the national, international recognition of St. Kitts and Nevis, when it comes to the business owners in St. Kitts and Nevis, when you look at the hotel industry, when you look at the taxi, because persons are going to need transportation when they come in. When you look at the restaurants, because persons are going to come to St. Kitts and Nevis, they're going to want to wine and dine and taste our cuisines. So it is the short-sightedness of Duggins and this administration, and that is why we are saying that a People's Action Movement-led administration is best for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Across the 6 host territories, more than 380,000 fans attended the games, a significant portion of whom were international visitors, many of whom were experiencing the Caribbean for the first time. Amid growing concerns across the Caribbean regarding the United States' stance on Cuban medical professionals worldwide, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has sought to clarify key areas of concern. Several Caribbean nations, including St. Kitts and Nevis, have requested clarification on the issue, particularly regarding the potential cancellation of visas for regional leaders and their family members if their territories are classified as participating in human trafficking. During his 2-day, 3-territory tour of the Caribbean, Secretary Rubio addressed the matter when questioned by reporters in Kingston, Jamaica.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to separate the medical from the labor issues that we are pointing to. Okay, this is not about doctors. Okay, this is not about the provision of medical assistance. We have no problem with medical assistance. We have no problem with doctors. We have a problem, and I'm not speaking about Jamaica. We've discussed this today about, following international labor standards and the like, but I'm just talking about this program in general, how it's operated around the world.
The United States has expressed concern that Cuban doctors may not receive their direct payments for their work.
And how it's operated around the world is that basically the doctors are not paid. In many other parts of the world, the doctors are not paid. You pay the Cuban government. The Cuban government decides how much of anything to give them. They take away their passports. They basically operate as forced labor in many places. Now, there are places that have better labor standards. Perhaps Jamaica is one of those, and that's fine. But I'm describing generally what the program has been. It has operated in that way in many parts of the world and placed these people in tremendous danger.
However, when the U.S. State Department issued warnings to the Caribbean and other countries benefiting from the Cuban medical program, regional leaders defended their positions. They argued that the Cuban doctors and medical practitioners were being paid at rates equal to or higher than those of local medical professionals. Among the leaders who have supported the program are Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley.
This matter with the Cubans and the nurses should tell us everything that we need to know. Barbados does not currently have Cuban medical staff or Cuban nurses, but I will be the first to go to the line and to tell you that we could not get through the pandemic without the Cuban nurses. I will also be the first to tell you that we paid them the same thing that we pay Bajans, and that the notion, as was peddled not just by this government in the US, but the previous government, that we were involved in human trafficking by engaging with the Cuban nurses was fully repudiated and rejected by us. Now, I don't believe that we have to shout across the seas, but I am prepared, like others in this region, that if we cannot reach a sensible agreement on this matter, then if the cost of it is the loss of my visa to the US, then so be it.
We rely a lot for our healthcare delivery on certain specialists who over the decades we have obtained from India, from the Philippines, sometimes from Africa, and mainly from Cuba. Out of the blue now we are being called human traffickers because we hire technical people who we pay top dollar equal to local rates, but we are now being accused of taking part in the program where people are being exploited. That's somebody's interpretation.
St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister Dr. Terence True also acknowledged the benefits his country has gained through its partnership with Cuba.
Cuba has been an indispensable partner to the Caribbean, and we believe its full integration into hemispheric development initiatives benefits all. A stronger, more prosperous Cuba is in the best interest of the Americas and the Caribbean, enhancing our collective security and sustainability. Equally so, the United States has been an invaluable development partner, and we are grateful for their contributions to our federation over the years. We are committed to strengthening our relationship.
Meanwhile, Secretary Rubio stated that the U.S. will continue engaging with regional leaders to discuss concerns surrounding the Cuban Medical Brigade.
And so I think we can all agree that the trafficking in labor, be they doctors or farm workers, is not something that we would want to be supportive of, and we find that to be an egregious practice on the part of the Cuban regime. Now, every country operates their program differently, and obviously because of our relationship with Jamaica, we're going to engage with them on that and talk about it further and have a better understanding. Perhaps none of this applies in the way it's handled here, but generally that's the problem with the program. It's not that they're Cuban doctors. It's that the regime does not pay these doctors, takes away their passports, and basically it is, in many ways, forced labor. And that we cannot be in support of. Again, not speaking about here in particular, but in general about the program.
Several construction projects across Nevis, led by the Concerned Citizens Movement, CCM-led Nevis Island Administration, have been left unfinished and are frustrating some residents. One in particular, the Alexandra Hospital expansion project, has become an eyesore, with some residents calling for answers. Speaking on a special edition of Freedom FM's Issues program on Wednesday, March 26, Nevis Reformation Party leader Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge raised the issue as an example of the NIA's mismanagement of funds and lack of accountability and transparency.
Where you have the mismanagement of funds and no accountability, we have a serious problem. We know the Alexandra Hospital, it was started back in 2017, 2018 with a 24-month build-out period. And we are now in 2025. The original budget was $18 million. The building, you can say it's now abandoned. No work has been done for the last almost 18 months. Right now, there is the government has allocated $12 million, but we have already exceeded the amount that was allocated to have it completed in the first instance. And
so this is an additional $12 million.
An additional $12 million. And the question is whether or not that can complete the hospital. Because at the last assembly meeting in Nevis, House of Assembly meeting, I would have asked the minister responsible for health, what is the status of the hospital, when it is likely to be completed, and what is the new estimated cost of completion. And the very lacking response was that the Taiwanese experts are reviewing the situation, and upon completion of their review, they would be able to provide us with some answers.
A quantity survey was conducted and results were returned to the NIA, but it remains unclear what the issue is at the site and why work has not resumed. The Premier of Nevis, Mark Brantley, and the Minister of Health, Senator Janelle Nisbet, gave several timelines for when the project would restart, but they have come and gone. In addition, Dr. Daniel Hodge questioned the whereabouts of the funds that were donated to the Nevis Island administration for a hemodialysis unit in 2018. This follows accusations that the CCM-led administration, after taking office, left dialysis equipment to rot in a container in the yard of the Alexandra Hospital, while dialysis patients go overseas for treatment.
We know that in 2018, CCM received a grant of $167,000 to purchase dialysis equipment for the Alexandra Hospital. Today, our people still have to come across to St. Kitts to get dialysis treatment. There is no sign of the equipment. So what happened to the $167,000?
During a press conference on February 24, 2022, Brantley claimed that there was no plan in place for dialysis treatment to take place on Nevis under the Nevis Reformation Party administration. In a WINN exclusive with Hensley Daniel, who served as Minister of Health under the Nevis Reformation Party administration, he said it was crass ignorance on the part of Brantley. He added that Brantley was trying to legitimize his incompetence.
Changing school curricula could be a key solution to addressing capacity deficiencies within small businesses across the region, as many continue to struggle with financial management. Small businesses are often described as the lifeblood of the region, with various territories reporting high numbers across multiple sectors. However, despite their prevalence, many lack the ability to attract high-value investors needed to scale up their operations. Dr. Davy Sinanan, Executive Director of the Caribbean Export Development Agency, highlighted the challenges facing small and medium enterprises in the region.
And I'm being very real here. The feedback that we're getting from many of the investors is that, the Caribbean has great potential and they're interested in investing in the Caribbean. But what we don't have are projects, like bankable, investable projects. Because if I'm an investor and I have $1 million and I come and I present it to you, Jimmy, for a project that you're doing, what I want to know is, okay, if I give you this $1 million, I'm going to get back $2 million in 3 years' time with all the bells and whistles that goes into finance and all of that kind of stuff. We don't have a lot of those types of projects that are being developed. We have ideas, we have concepts, we have things that can be successful, but we have to move those ideas into investable projects so that we can present it to investors. That's where we are. That's a challenge at this point.
One major hurdle has been the limited collaboration between SMEs, government agencies, and project developers, which have hindered the region's ability to compete effectively with developed economies. In a candid discussion, Dr. Sinanan emphasized the evolving business landscape.
Do you believe that our education system needs revamping to focus specifically on these critical initiative-based projects, decisions, because we don't focus on the talent development in the region.
I think we can do, there's work to be done. I mean, we have to understand that it's a complicated issue because, again, we're small countries, so the scale is not there to say that we can offer, you know, $1 million course and it's just 2 or 3 students that will qualify for it or have interest in it at this point in time. So it's a very complicated issue. But I definitely do agree that we have to start producing internal capacity in the region that is focused on modern issues and modern problems. Climate change. Are we putting together climate scientists that are indigenous to the Caribbean region? IT, technology, app development. Are we encouraging our young people to go into that area at a very early age? I mean, it's one thing to go into that when you're 18 or 19 and you're in university, but it's another thing to start teaching it at Form 1 level. Innovation and technology, and project and finance and capital markets. I mean, these are things that are very important.
The Caribbean Export Development Agency, in partnership with the Caribbean Development Bank, is actively working to build capacity within the sector.
Yeah, it's a capacity. That's why I believe it's a capacity. And then listen, project development is a very specialized skill. It's not that, you know, anybody can do it. I can't do it. It's a specialized skill, but it's something that we have to build that capacity in the region. We have to build that capacity amongst our businesses. We have to build that capacity amongst our, you know, government agencies, our investment promotion agencies. Once we build that capacity, then we can have these projects that we can present to investors. And that's what Caribbean, and we've partnered with the Caribbean Development Bank to identify resources, financial resources that we can bring on the expertise to package projects ahead of Caribbean Investment Forum.
Taking it a step further, Dr. Sinanan stressed the importance of introducing these initiatives at an early stage within the education system.
Are we gearing our people and our students up for a career in these areas? Are we getting them excited about it? Farming is another area I wanted to bring up too. I mean, the average age of a farmer in the Caribbean region is over 50. We need more farmers in the Caribbean region because we need food. We need to produce more food in the region. And farming is very exciting. There are things like hydroponics, farming technology, GPS farming, things that young people are interested in. We have to get them excited about these areas.
Small businesses are the backbone of economies across the Caribbean, and Caribbean Export Development Agency is focused on empowering these businesses through loans, grants, and opportunities to enter new markets. As a regional agency that has been operating for several years, CEDA continues to make a positive impact on small businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Dami Sinanan, Executive Director of Caribbean Exports, confirmed in an interview with WINN FM that companies in the Federation have benefited from regional grant funding over the years.
Well, St. Kitts and Nevis is one of our key beneficiary countries. So we help, as I noted, we help small and medium-sized enterprises in St. Kitts and Nevis. We help them through a number of different things, through capacity building, through business training, through grant funding, through just in order to build their capacity so that they can expand their product offerings and their service offerings, and they can go out and explore new markets. And we've worked with a number of firms in St. Kitts and Nevis. Just yesterday morning, we did a site visit to one of our clients, Miss Anastasia Elliott, Sugar Tongue Organics. She does these wonderful beauty spa products, jewelry, all different types of stuff. And it was really good to see the progress that she's made over the past 5 years with Caribbean Export support.
However, while some businesses have successfully utilized the support available, many others are still unaware of the vital role CEDA plays in assisting small enterprises.
You guys have a lot to offer. I mean, some businesses are really, really strong, what we've seen. And they need the support that Caribbean Export provides. So that's why I'm here, just to really try to let all the businesses there know that Caribbean Export Development Agency exists. We have a product offering that can help you. So I encourage you to reach out to us and see how we can work together to assist your businesses grow, expand, and just really drive your competitiveness up. So that's sort of my goal, just being here in St. Kitts.
Dr. Cinnamon was recently in the Federation for the Green Climate Fund Forum, where he highlighted the importance of small businesses considering climate change and its potential impact on their operations.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, Jimmy. I mean, that's the challenge. And that's where we are focused on in this new program that we're running, is to build climate adaptability and resilience for small and medium-sized enterprises. And we have to recognize that, and I go back to the point I made earlier, many of these small and medium-sized enterprises in the Caribbean region, they're focused on survival. And survival means opening the door today, tomorrow, the day after that. And they don't necessarily think about climate change and all of that kind of thing. They're just focused on what's in front of them. Rightly so, absolutely rightly so. But they have to understand that, again, the climate is going to impact them one way or the other. I mean, if you're a fisherman, it's going to impact your catch. Climate change is going to impact your catch. If you are a food beverage manufacturer, crops, your raw materials are going to get more expensive. If there's a hurricane and the hurricane passes through, even a small hurricane, can your business rebound as quick as possible? These are simple changes that businesses can make. So right now, it's a culture shift that we need to have. We need to start at that point. We need to build the understanding of our businesses so that they can start to think about climate change and how it will impact their business. And that's a step, but it's a step that they have to take.
During the pandemic, CDEP launched a campaign to encourage more small businesses to get involved. This initiative enabled them to provide grant funding to several entities within the Federation.
We launched our grant program that time, and we were here really pushing the grant program. And if I remember correctly, that was really the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. We were all wearing masks, and we had to fill out that form and get approval because before we could have traveled to St. Kitts and Nevis. So when we came, our goal was really to push our grant program. And I was very happy to say that we got extremely good results from St. Kitts and Nevis. We got, I think, about 8 applications, which was like 3 times more than we usually would get. And I think we were able to give grant funding to 3 firms, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, I don't have the statistics in front of me. But we were able to give grant funding to 3 firms from St. Kitts and Nevis. So that mission really paid off. Obviously, we can do more. But again, it's about making sure that we're here. We just started a new program. I mean, that was under our old program. We're funded by the European Union. We are under a new program. So we expect in the upcoming 3 years, because it's a 3-year-long program, that we will have new and exciting initiatives to share with the business persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, including more grant funding.
Despite these efforts, CEDA faces challenges ahead, particularly due to the shifting geopolitical landscape, which may impact the work in the near future.
The Caribbean nations can and should embrace energy independence. That continues to be the rallying call amongst OECS and CARICOM member states. The Sustainable Energy for All Global Forum held in Barbados on March 13 and 14 encouraged the member states to take action and make the necessary investments to achieve their renewable energy goals. Following the wrap-up session of the event, Mr. Conris Maynard, chairman of the OECS Council of Energy Ministers and St. Kitts and Nevis's Minister of Energy, expressed the importance of small island states having a seat at the table and having their voices heard as they strive to achieve a sustainable future.
This is an excellent forum, Sustainable Energy for All, because it is an opportunity to bring all the important stakeholders from across the globe in a singular space, in a Caribbean space, to discuss how we can move sustainable energy forward for this region. And by extension, it was particularly important for us because it gave SIDS a special opportunity to have a platform and a seat at the table to discuss very, very critical issues. Importantly, financing and climate justice. How do we, who are disproportionately affected by the effects of climate change, how do we move forward to adapt to make ourselves resilient when we simply do not have the capital outlay that will allow us to level the playing field? And so there needs to be, as we have discussed, some level of justice, climate justice, to ensure that we are not left behind.
Meanwhile, Clement Jomo Williams, General Manager of the St. Kitts Electricity Company SCELEC, participated in a panel discussion called Unlocking Geothermal Potential from Power Generation to Sustainable Development in the Global South. He shared with energy stakeholders St. Kitts and Nevis's quest towards a 100% renewable energy solution by 2035, including solar energy and a game-changing one-grid geothermal plan.
Our targets would be for by 2030 to have 50% of our energy demand to be covered by renewable sources. Now, again, remember, our size being only 45 megawatts total demand makes that very possible. So if you do one large utility scale solar farm, one large utility scale wind farm, coupled with the fact that we have the geothermal resource in the island in Nevis, that can take us to 100% very easy. So right now, the focus would be 50% by 2030, to solar PV utility scale. Then right behind that, we would have the geothermal project coming to fruition, taking us over. So it's very possible that by 2030, between 2030 and 2035, St. Kitts and Nevis could be one of the first islands in the Caribbean to be run 100% off of renewable energy sourcing.
The Sustainable Energy for All Global Forum was held under the theme Sustainable Energy for Equity, Security and Prosperity. Local artist extraordinaire Vaughn Anslin was given the trust and free will to create a mural at the newly renovated and revitalized Joy Learning Center located in the pediatric ward of the JNF General Hospital, St. Kitts. Simply a playroom for years, the space was transformed within a few weeks and named Joy Learning Center. It was officially opened during a brief but significant ceremony on March 22, 2025. With a paintbrush in hand and a variety of paint color options, Anslin created a welcoming, child-friendly scene birthed by his imagination. Anslin told WINN FM he was happy to accomplish his goal.
Well, to tell you the truth, when I was approached with the idea of doing a mural in the children's wing at the pediatric ward, they didn't have an idea. I think they just told me to paint something. And for most people, that might be a deterrent. But for me, I actually love that because then I get to immerse myself in the creative process and therefore pursue my own vision. So I basically just asked the question, what's the age group that will be in here? You know, both kids and some adults. And that's basically it. The concept, the houses, the smiling animals. I wanted to be a happy place. And basically, I think I achieved that and add a little bit of educational touch to it with the numbers and the ABC. And you have a place where kids can have fun in and be themselves. I think that was the ultimate goal, and I think I achieved that.
The mural was sponsored by Mr. Ernest Amory, Honorary Consul General of Switzerland, local businessman and philanthropist. Filled with bright colors, pictures, books, and a general feel of the natural environment, the Joy Learning Center is bound to make children forget that they are in the hospital. The space includes a brand new TV sponsored by Mr. Leon Matthew of Matthew Business Solutions, an air conditioning unit, blinds, new flooring, coloring books, activity books, storybooks, novels for all ages, and educational books focused on science and health. It also has educational toys, stationery, paint sets, and bean bags. The staff of the pediatric wing was instrumental in the transformation of the space, from the clearing to the setting up. The charity initiative aligns with the overall enhancement plan of the Joseph and Franz General Hospital. Studies show that the aesthetics of a hospital or healthcare environment are fundamental to patients' health, well-being, and recovery. Mrs. Diane Prince Drew, the wife of the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew, spearheaded the initiative under her foundation, the Joy Project. She was adamant about transforming the playroom into a bright, inviting multi-purpose space that would bring joy, positivity, comfort, and upliftment to all who use it. The newly revitalized Joy Learning Center is the first initiative executed by the Joy Project for the year. The organization is committed to bringing joy and making a meaningful impact in the communities. Plastic pollution threatens the environment, food security, and human health. Attention has been drawn to the accumulation of microplastics in the ocean and how they possibly interfere with the health of organisms and ecosystems. However, there is also a critical concern that microplastics may be in people's food, drinking water, and indoor air, thus impacting human life. In support of the Plastic Waste Reduction Bill 2025, Dr. Terence Drew, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, emphasized that plastics cause many medical issues as they have become a comprehensive part of the environment. While the human body is known to be made up of flesh, bone, and blood, Drew toiled with the idea that plastics could be considered another element that makes up the human body because of its high level of exposure and toxicity.
And these plastics that reside in our bodies cause tremendous issues. One, plastic cause inflammation. Inflammation is responsible for almost any disease. The hallmark of almost any disease is inflammation, be it heart disease, brain disease in terms of stroke, cancers, and other inflammatory diseases such as lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, and those type of chronic diseases. A lot of them, the basis of all of them is inflammation. And do you know what plastic causes? Precisely. Plastic causes inflammation. And because plastic causes inflammation, one is now predisposed to have a plethora of diseases, many of which I have just mentioned, and one of them being cancers, Madam Speaker. I am sure that when the studies are completed, the high rate of cancers and chronic diseases that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis, many of them will be attributed to our ingestion of plastics.
Some other key takeaways from Dr. Drew's presentation suggest plastics can cause gut microbiome disruption, which is indirectly linked to obesity, diabetes, and other metabolic diseases. Plastics can affect the brain. It can cause brain fog, dementia, and other types of mental manifestations when the brain is damaged.
So I want people to understand that when we are saying we have to get rid of plastics, it is not because we are following a trend, it's because we care about the health of our people. Each time I see all these plastics that are at the landfill and on the side of the roads, I just think about the health of our people. How much more people are going to come down with cancer? How much more people are going to end up with diabetes? How much more people are going to have increased weight and just don't understand why the weight is increasing? How much more people are going to have hormonal problems and just don't understand why the hormones are all over the place? I'm not saying that plastic is the only cause, but plastic has been shown to be a cause and a fundamental cause. Therefore, it is important, Madam Speaker, that we get rid of plastics. So plastics are causing a serious health epidemic right here in our country, and it has become so deadly that it is time that we get rid of plastics.
Increasingly, microplastics are making their way into the food chain as fish come into regular contact with ocean plastic waste. Hotspot areas, almost like whirlpools in the ocean, where currents have trapped huge amounts of debris, mostly plastics, have been rather unsettling for environmentalists. The most popular of its kind, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, is approximately twice the size of Texas, making it the largest accumulation of plastic waste in the ocean. 5 marine plastic patches exist in the world, with one being formed in the Caribbean. St. Kitts and Nevis have not been spared the global phenomenon of plastic pollution. Rather, if plastic waste isn't controlled in the Federation, it could threaten marine life, tourism development, and the general economy. Painting a real picture of what has become a global challenge, Senator Dr. Joel Clark, Minister of Sustainable Development, the Environment, Climate Change and Constituency Empowerment, explained why people should be more conscious about plastic use and disposal.
The problem continues when we consider the serious challenge of ghost fishing. And this is a very problematic issue. Abandoned fishing gear, which then become ghost fishing material. Abandoned nets, abandoned lines, which trap fish. Fishermen don't want them anymore. Trawlers don't need them anymore. They leave them in the ocean. And these are a critical problem that we're having. And connected to this, these plastics trapped in this oceanic plastic trap slowly disintegrate. And they disintegrate into microplastics. And fish consume them. And we are a fish-eating country. Then we consume the fish with the microplastics, and then we become sick.
The production and consumption of plastic products cause plastic pollution, especially as the demand for plastic products continues to increase over time. How does the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis contribute to the global plastic pollution crisis?
The problem of plastic emissions is most acute in countries where incomes are growing, like us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, where plastic consumption is growing, but waste management systems and infrastructures, as you can see, struggle to effectively deal with increasing consumption. Plastic waste on land can be managed, but for coastal mountainous countries like St. Kitts and Nevis, we have a serious problem, especially with oceanic plastic waste. Our guts are arteries connecting mountainous land-based waste to the ocean. During storms and rain events, plastic makes its way to our oceans using our guts. This means that 80% of the litter on land will end up in our oceans. Floating plastic in the ocean eventually makes it back to somebody's shoreline. And we have plastics washing up on our shoreline that their source is far away, as far as the Atlantic and Pacific. This has very serious consequences for fishing industry, for the tourism industry, and results in heavy cleanup costs that we bear for our coastal communities.
Moreover, the production process for plastics is energy intensive, leading to carbon emissions and contributing to the climate crisis the world faces. Plastic-related trends have raised dire concerns and highlighted the urgent need for sustainable solutions and a change in human behavior to manage plastic waste. The efforts being made to control plastic consumption and reduce waste are considered more than just protecting the planet. They are also protecting lives and livelihoods.
You were listening to the Week in Review here on WINN FM 98.9. Thank you for listening and have a productive week.